Look at the silver price on your screen right now. Now forget it. That number is already obsolete. On Friday, December 26th, 2025, just after 10 a.m. New York time, silver blew through $78.50 an ounce and kept going, while the people who actually need the metal quietly discovered something terrifying. There is no spare silver left for investors. The industrial world just crossed a red line it cannot uncross. You're not watching a rally, you're watching triage. For the fifth year in a row, global silver demand has been larger than global silver supply. The official deficit for 2025 is tracking around 149 million ounces, on top of 4 consecutive years of prior shortfalls. That's not a cycle, that's a structural bleed out. And here's the part nobody is pricing in. More than half of all silver demand is now industrial, and that industrial demand has hit all-time highs, powered by solar, EVs, AI data centers, and defense systems that physically cannot function without this metal. We have built a digital civilization on an analog fuse, and that fuse is made of silver. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. In 2024, industrial users burned through over 700 million ounces of silver. Solar alone is swallowing close to 200 million ounces per year, with every gigawatt of new capacity locking more metal into glass and plastic for 30 years. Add EVs, 5G, semiconductors, medical and military hardware, and you've created something engineers call a non-negotiable load. This is not jewelry. You do not skip a few grams of silver in a missile guidance system because it's too expensive this quarter. You either buy the metal or the system does not turn on. That's what inelastic demand actually means in the real world. When the factory gates open on Monday morning, purchasing has to fill that order no matter what COMEX did on Friday. Now combine that with the supply side. 70+% of silver does not come from silver mines. It dribbles out as a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc. That means you can't just turn up silver production when price explodes, not without rebuilding entire base metal industries that are already struggling with their own economics. Imagine trying to fight a wildfire with water that only arrives as a side product of making soda. The more the fire spreads, the more obvious it becomes. The hose was never designed for this. Industrial demand has now risen to the point where it is swallowing almost the entire river of annual mine supply by itself. Everything left over for investors is not a comfortable buffer, it's residue. And the market knows it, even if the headline price pretends not to. On December 24th, Shanghai's physical silver price closed roughly $8 above COMEX futures. The curve went into backwardation, spot more expensive than paper promises. A classic sign that the people who actually need atoms in a vault do not trust contracts on a screen. That $8 gap is not noise. It's a siren. Arbitrage was supposed to close that spread in minutes. Instead, it's becoming semi-permanent. Why? Because the only way to close that gap is to ship physical bars from west to east, and the vaults in London and New York are already dangerously thin after years of continuous outflows. We have reached the point where the system is trying to sell the same ounce of silver to an Indian jewelry buyer, a Chinese solar manufacturer, a US missile program, and your favorite ETF, all at the same time. Let's step into the risk room. It's Monday morning after this latest spike. Silver has just printed a new all-time high. On the wall, there's a screen showing Shanghai, another showing COMEX, and a third with a heat map of industrial clients screaming for metal. The head risk officer is staring at a simple equation. Line 1, hedge book, short silver via paper to manage price risk for industrial clients. Line 2, physical inventory, already committed, already loaned, already leased 2 and 3 times. Line 3, new reality. Silver is now on Washington's official list of critical minerals. Export controls from China are tightening. Defense contracts have priority. In plain English, the bank wrote promises it can't not keep in a metal that just got upgraded to strategic ammunition. Every extra dollar silver moves higher turns that hedge book into a slow-motion car crash. The gamma risk builds. The margin calls creep closer. And here's the nightmare. To reduce the risk, they have to buy back the very metal that is exploding in price, or at least buy futures tied to it, in a market that is already in deficit. Picture a submarine taking on water. The crew opens the emergency valves to pump it out and realizes the pipes are connected back into the same flooded compartment. That's the institutional silver market in 2025. Now add geopolitics. China is rolling out export licensing on silver. The U.S. geological authorities have quietly stamped silver as critical. NATO planners are staring at spreadsheets showing how many ounces sit in each drone, each radar system, each satellite, each ship. Silver is not a shiny metal anymore. It's the wiring harness of modern warfare and the nervous system of the green transition. Solar farms are effectively turning silver into a strategic reserve buried under glass in the desert. AI data centers, the new cathedrals of computation, are lined with silver-rich components that cannot be economically recycled. Every EV rolling off the line is another small vault of unrecoverable metal on wheels. This is industrial bioaccumulation. Like a heavy metal concentrating up the food chain, silver is concentrating up the technology chain, from ore to factory to finished product, and then disappearing from the market for decades. Here's the fatal disconnect. Wall Street still prices silver like a cyclical commodity. Real-world physics is treating it like a one-way valve. We're no longer in a temporary shortage. We are in a permanent deficit regime, where the baseline industrial load is above sustainable supply, and investors only get what leaks through the cracks of the system. The spot price on your phone is the story for tourists. The real story is told by persistent multi-year deficits, record industrial demand, critical mineral status, and a physical price in Shanghai that refuses to bow to COMEX. That is what a broken benchmark looks like. So what does this mean for you, the prepared investor, not the herd? First, stop thinking like a trader staring at candles. Start thinking like an engineer staring at a load chart. If the industrial base load is now structurally above mine output, the system has entered what in engineering we'd call a hydraulic lock. Pressure builds until something breaks. In markets, that something is usually the paper side. The ETFs that do not have enough metal behind every share. The unallocated accounts where your ounces are just digits on a fractional ledger. The producer hedges that assume $10, $15, $20 silver forever. That's the counterparty risk the mainstream never talks about. Second, understand the new hierarchy of claims. In a world where silver is a critical input for energy, food chains, and war machines, industrial and military demand get first call on atoms. Investors are not at the front of the line. You are at the back. If you're holding paper, you're effectively volunteering to be the emergency relief valve when the system seizes. When real metal runs short, you get cash. In a currency they're devaluing to pay for the crisis, atoms win, paper bleeds. Third, stop asking how high can the price go and start asking how long can this deficit run before the system reprices everything. Look at the math. Multi-year deficits in the hundreds of millions of ounces. Industrial demand growing faster than mine supply can possibly respond. And a geopolitical environment where no major bloc can afford to be short the metal that powers their grids and weapons. This is mathematical inevitability, not mood. The only variables left are speed and policy response. Will we get rationing via price, three-digit silver that finally kills marginal demand? Or rationing via regulation, export bans, windfall taxes, nationalization, directed flows to priority sectors? Either way, the script is the same. The spot price lie gets exposed, the physical market asserts itself, and those holding atoms instead of promises sleep through the chaos. So where does that leave you tonight? If you're hearing this, you're already ahead of 99% of the herd still arguing about ETFs on social media. You understand that a world running record solar installs, EV adoption, AI build-outs, and rearmament campaigns cannot also keep silver cheap and abundant for speculators. You understand that 5 years of compounding deficits do not just go away because a commentator on TV says silver is overbought. And you understand that in a permanent deficit regime, price volatility is not your enemy. It's the sound of a system being forced to admit the truth. Your edge is not timing the next tick. Your edge is owning what the system must consume and doing it without leverage, without counterparty risk, and without apologizing for front-running the institutions that created this mess. So here's my verdict. The red line has been crossed. Industrial demand has eaten the future, and the market still pretends it's a snack. There is no cheap silver left for investors at the margin. Only brief, weaponized dips in a long, disorderly repricing. Hold the atoms. Ignore the paper theater. And remember, in a permanent deficit, every ounce you already own is not just a hedge, it's a front row seat to the end of the old script. You are the prepared investor. Everyone else is about to find out what no silver left really looks like. Hold the line.